Hello, legends. Take a look at this.
If this is all one big coincidence, no big deal.
I think we all remember the Challenger explosion that took place in 1986. It tragically took the lives of all 7 astronauts on board. It launched not too far from where we're standing here today. Well, the interesting thing is, a couple decades later, this thing called the internet came about, and someone allegedly found almost all of those astronauts alive and well. Now, we all have a doppelganger out there, right? No big deal. But to have the same face, the same age, and the same exact name is extremely rare. So rare, I could only find one case in the last 120 years. And we're supposed to believe that 3 people from one spaceflight have exact lookalikes that have the same age and same exact names.
I have Justin.
Let's go and meet this amazing gentleman. Justin, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's absolute pleasure. I don't know where to start except what I'm going to say. Friends, can you just check that you're still subscribed? Because we're getting an awful lot of people unsubscribed from our channel. No surprise. And if you're not subscribed, may I suggest you do, because you're not going to you're not going to come across a channel like this. I promise you. Justin, yes. So by the power of the internet, I came across your clip where you were delivering the astronauts from the Challenger disaster are still alive speech, and I smiled because I came across this realization quite a few years ago now, when an absolutely brilliant video surfaced and somebody had broken everything down, and then I saw yours and I thought, yeah, let's get this guy on the show. So without further ado, can you just I mean, I know We Are Change, I know Luke Rudkowski has been a strong voice for ever since what I call those events in New York and Washington, the magic buildings. Is that kind of like what you woke up? Are you friends with Luke?
Yeah, that's kind of how I got started. Was I stumbled into the rabbit hole in 2012, and I found people like Luke Rudkowski and David Icke and the other people who already had been at this for years, and they inspired me to go out there and start my own thing. So I got involved with the We Are Change Orlando, Florida chapter, and just started to replicate what I had been seeing, confronting politicians, organizing protests, speaking at these county and city meetings, and just exposing the liars, holding their feet to the fire. And the rest is history. Since then, I've worked on a number of health-related issues, but I also really like to expose what NASA is doing and some of the more worldly events as well.
Yeah, I mean, and not a lot of people know, but NASA was founded on the occult because we couldn't get rockets into space. This was the thing. It was Jack Parsons, wasn't it, that he he's a rocket scientist out there in the desert, and he couldn't get a rocket into space, so he went to Aleister Crowley's Thelema, which was a sex and drugs magic cult, wondering if he could get the answer through the dark arts to make his dream come true, which was to get a rocket into space. And that obviously morphed in later down the line into NASA. So it's quite interesting that there's this whole side to NASA that the public wouldn't kind of get.
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up thinking of them as just a space agency with, scientists and nerds working on things that I probably couldn't understand. And then you look into the origins and man, it gets dark quick. I mean, you talk about Operation Paperclip, bringing over the Nazis, what NASA it means to deceive in Hebrew, if you look it up under certain definitions. And then then you start to find the lies that they've told, and you just really wonder, are they really a space agency? I come to think of them as more of like an intelligence agency for the world because they keep some of our biggest secrets. They're engaged in what seems to be some of the biggest psychological mind manipulation programs that we've ever seen. I mean, if we're not really going to space, they've that's a pretty big trick, and they've pulled it on the world, not just America.
Yeah, it has huge implications because, of course, there's a certain Elon Musk that has to go along with that narrative because he's kind of pushing the same one and, sending Teslas into just.
He's a funny one because a lot of people got on board with him in the recent years because he bought Twitter and was a champion for free speech, allegedly, and all these things. But I was always like, I've known him as the guy working hand in hand with NASA and the DoD to fake space travel, in my opinion. So I don't know why we're trusting him. It's cool if he wants to help expose certain topics. Twitter is better. I can't argue that. But if you're still in cahoots with those people and lying to us about, what's going on up there, I have my guard up on Elon always.
Yeah. Justin, did you ever see someone put a great video up on YouTube? And what they'd done is they'd analyze when he first started doing that rocket booster thing that they fly themselves back down to Earth and they land on the pods in the sea, the rafts in the sea. And this guy had realized the video feed that they were showing on each rocket booster as it brought themselves down to Earth. He realized it was the same video. They just slowed this one down by 4 seconds, right? Thinking that and he put up this video exposing it, saying, look, it's, how would you forget or accidentally have the same camera on both? And what happened is overnight, the video changed, which you can't do on YouTube. Anyone that's had anything to do with YouTube can tell you can edit bits out of a video when it's up on YouTube using the Creator Studio. You can't re-upload the same video. You either got to take it down, and put a new one up. So this is the level of a deception. Is YouTube had allowed SpaceX to swap this video, and when you watched it after this point, suddenly it was a different video on this on this other camera. Going back, I'm just going to ask you, what was the thing that woke you up? And for me, it was that infamous building with the number 7 referred to. And me and my brother, we watched just a whole load of stuff round about that era that it started to hit the internet. Weird videos of the Pentagon, missiles being carried out by people that look like Secret Service, just weird stuff. And my brother and I, we would meet Justin, and we'd be like, they can't lie to. Oh yeah, Building 7. Yeah, they have lied to. We just could not. It was the smoking gun that unless you had something mentally wrong with you, like you were so programmed in the Matrix, you could not deny that building went like that.
Right.
And yeah, what was your kind of seminal moment?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that event because I always joke with people that it took me 10 years to look into 9/11, but it only took me about 10 minutes to realize that we had been lied to. Because once I saw the collapse of Building 7, I knew. But there have been people that had been at it a lot longer than me. It was just, I had a relative send me a YouTube video about aliens. And I watched it, and the gentleman, Stephen Greer, was talking about aliens and government secrets. And the alien part was interesting, but it was the other stuff he started talking about. When he started mentioning that there was this small elite group of people in the world that controlled our banks and our money and all this, they planned the world wars. And I looked into the Federal Reserve Bank and the occult and all of this kind of overarching group. And that's what sent me down the rabbit hole. And eventually you find, what they're doing to our food, what happened to those magic buildings on that day. And the rest of the rabbit hole is just like wide open there for you. But in a strange way, it was like aliens led me to like the New World Order and the Federal Reserve and Monsanto and 9/11, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. It's Stephen Greer, isn't it?
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of his stuff lately because a friend that I was served in the Marines with has just brought out a book. He's a doctor now, or a doctorate, PhD, and he's brought out a book. Oh God, it's not UFO Disclosure. It's got another name. I've got a.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, if you're watching. Just getting a bit grey, mate. Yeah, we did a podcast on it the other day. And do you think with the UFO disclosure thing, it's almost like it's been taken in house by the quote unquote the government and the TV companies, and they're making these disclosure documentaries as though, hey, it just smells like psyop, more kind of psyop bullshit.
It does. And I've gone from the point of when I was a sheep or whatever, ignorant to everything. I was probably, aliens probably aren't real. And then when you wake up, it's probably like, wow, it looks like they might be hiding aliens. But then the more you learn, I think a lot of it is them. While there could be aliens out there, I don't think they come from space. They probably come from under the outer lands, beyond Antarctica, or under the ocean. But this idea of them putting it in all the movies and all the books and shoving it down our throat, you're right. It's got psyop written all over it. And it rings to me like when they get their backs put against the wall or they're using their final card, they're going to fake an alien invasion to try to regain that control. So that's possible. And I've always told people to keep their eye out for that. If you see stuff in the sky or they start planting things in the media that something's coming, it's probably them. It's probably fear campaign. Just to get us back into check, just like with the medical nonsense, as you call it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back then to those infamous events in New York and Washington, Lucky Larry springs to mind. I think he's probably one of the more sort of puppets in the whole thing when it comes to the architects of that event, because he's just not that smart, is he, as an individual? He's got that thing where he just thinks he can gaslight people and they're just going to believe it when clearly, like, you're gaslighting us, dude. I guess what I'm getting to is, are you familiar with the work of Christopher Bullin?
Oh yeah, I actually got to meet him and heard him speak in Florida one time.
Yeah.
About his book.
I'm trying to tread diplomatically here because of the platform we're on, but he makes no bones in calling out a certain group of people behind it.
Yeah.
So much so, people of that ethno-faith will stand up and walk out of his, they don't want to hear it, which is,
right,
kind of victim mode is, oh, no, could never be us. And what I'm getting at, and I don't mean to cause any offense to anyone out there, but clearly when you look at, like, Larry Silverstein and Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, these guys have got something going on there, and it's not particularly, well, it's fucking dark is what I'm trying to say. So any scrutiny is well deserved, and I think I said this a lot, but calling you a racial slur just because you don't want to go along with the historical narrative is the beauty of it is it's not working anymore.
That's it. Yeah,
it's not working anymore. People are saying, no, fuck that, dude. You've changed my life. You've got all this Patriot Act bullshit, and you members of your club are trying to put stuff into the bodies of me and my loved ones, so much so, I mean, just me personally, 4 members of my family maimed for life, right? by them, and it's like, fuck off. You excuse my swearing, folks. I'm just trying to make the point that no, you don't call me like a racist because I question that stuff. And I think it's so wonderful that narrative, that gaslighting doesn't work. It's ceasing to work now. And love them, hate them, controlled opposite, whatever. But the likes of Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons of the world just coming out now and questioning like the whole Israel psyop thing.
Yep.
Even if there might be something going on, it's certainly powerful to the point, Justin, where I wonder, is that another, are we supposed to be calling this bullshit out now? But my question to you is, did you come to the same conclusion about 9/11, that it is this dark network?
Oh, absolutely. You first find out you're lied to, and the Building 7, the Pentagon, the details. But when you read Christopher Bolin's book, when you realize the who's who and who has, it's kind of like the Charlie Kirk event, who has the motive and the means to stage a cover-up with our intelligence agencies and with our police. There's only one group, and it's not the government of Australia. It's not the government of Ireland. It's not Zimbabwe. There's only one ally that helps us cover these things up. So it really, and then you just look at how many times has Netanyahu gone to Congress and sold us into wars, asking us to attack this Middle Eastern country and that Middle Eastern country on their behalf. It's clearly an agenda. The Greater Israel Project is something I always point people to go look into. I mean, that's a plan to establish, more control over the Middle East. And who can help them do that? Well, the big military baseball bat of the United States government. So that's what that's all about. But I'm actually hopeful and very optimistic, because since October 7th, since the way the internet has worked in the last 2 years, Christopher Bolin has to feel quite vindicated of how many regular people on the left, the right, the middle, that are just talking about who's really controlling our government and carrying out these events like 9/11. It's really everywhere now. I've been shocked actually in the last couple years to see how much to the forefront it has come. I knew we'd get a lot of health related things exposed due to the medical nonsense and opening people's eyes to how we're being poisoned. But for this Israel topic to just get laid all the cards out on the table just almost overnight has been surreal and pretty rewarding, because it needs to stop.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, Israel goes back to the Rothschilds with the English Balfour Declaration, which was completely unlawful. And it's been the kind of front company for the New World. I call it the front company for the New World Order. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, let's move on back to the NASA thing then, because this friends. Justin, I should explain. I'm looking over here because I've got my other screen up, and I'm showing people at home the respective, videos and photos and stuff. I've just been showing Chris Bolin. But yeah, this whole Challenger thing, I've seen people debunking the debunk, as it were, saying, oh no, they all died. And here's the thing. Not only, and friends at home, we will explain, I'm going to show a bit so you kind of get to know what we're talking about, but not only are they categorically the same people. Friends, if you're wondering, if you're new to all this is the theory that these astronauts that we were all supposed to have seen, vaporize, or worse still, plunge to their deaths in the ocean. What would that? That would be the Atlantic. That they're actually all still alive. The majority of them haven't even changed their names, and those that have just adopted their middle name, which is like a couple of them. Like this chap here, Ronald McNair, is just saying, "Oh no, I'm my twin twin brother, that some of them are still, they're just practicing their law practice or lecturing in university like nothing, like nothing. They've got nothing to hide, which I guess before the days of the internet they didn't, because it was so hard to like trace these people, and why would you? Plus the fact that it's not so in your face all the time, so you could just leave it a few weeks and then go back to anyway, sorry. So friends, you get what I'm kind of getting at here. There's a whole load of stuff going on here. This was the so-called Commander Dick Scobie. That's as he was back in 1986, and this is allegedly how he is now. And like I say, it kind of goes on and on. Now, I've seen people try to debunk the debunk, and Justin, I don't think they're really very successful. I think you can kind of prove anything if you want to sort of prove it. And I guess people are saying that to us now, but how did you first come across this?
Well, I was already in the rabbit hole of NASA and the moon landing, things like that. And when you're in that area, you come across people sharing information about the Challenger. And someone shared a video comparing these before and after photos. And I thought, no way, I'm going to look this up. And I look it up, and sure enough, Judith Resnick is right there teaching on the internet. So is Michael J. Smith. And, a lot of people would say, oh, well, this is just AI. Well, this AI wasn't around yet. This sprung about in 2015. Okay, scratch that out. Well, these pictures could be photoshopped or faked. Well, 2 of them have been confronted in real life. So the pictures aren't fake. And then some people will say, oh, well, those don't really look like them. Well, not only do 98% of my comments in all these videos say that they look alike, the guy who got confronted agrees they look alike. I mean, he flat out says that's what we looked like back then, which is a strange thing to say in of itself. Why are you saying we? Why didn't you say that's what he looked like? Or that's what I? We sounds like you guys are the same people. So the debunkers really don't have a leg to stand on. I always say, go find me another set of doppelgangers that have the same first and last name and are the same age. You cannot do it. You can't do it. You might be able to find a Chris Thrall, but he definitely doesn't look just like you. He's not going to be the same height, have the same teeth. And what if he lived in the same part of the country and was in the same profession? Like, it would just be so. And then that's just one of the astronauts. Now 3 people from your podcast team all have that same experience. It would be so unbelievable. I actually did an experiment with ChatGPT on this, and I asked them questions about lookalikes and what the odds would be if I ran into someone like that. And when I broke it all down, it was basically like this is really, really, like, the odds are astronomical. And it even got to the point, it said, if this happens to you, you may want to contact the authorities because someone may be fraudulently taking your identity. I said, well, that's interesting because, we've got a pretty solid case here with the Challenger crew.
And you felt so passionate about this. You took this to court. Can you explain to us that aren't so familiar with the law, especially the law on your side of the pond? What was all that about?
Yeah, so it actually isn't court. It's actually just a county commission meeting room. So we have the ability here to go to our county meetings and speak for 3 minutes on whatever topic we would like, as long as it has relation to the county. So I chose I already had gone in there to talk about the ISS. The video went viral. Lots of people were asking questions and were becoming aware of what was going on with the ISS. So I thought, why don't I go in there and ask them for help about the Challenger? It launched from that county in that area. I don't live too far from there. Maybe these people can ask the federal government to help me reinvestigate this. I mean, they ask the federal government for help all the time. So I went in there and brought this up. And unlike my ISS speech, I was not allowed to finish. I was cut off halfway through by the chairman. And he said that this is not relevant to our board. Remove this man from the room. He asked the police to remove me. This caused the video to get 100 times more attention. I filed a lawsuit against the county based on First Amendment grounds. We ended up settling. They had to pay for what they did. And I was allowed to go back in there and continue exposing them for things like the murder of Gus Grissom. But that's what happened in a nutshell. I can talk to you more about the presentation and whatnot. If you notice, I only focus on three of the astronauts. The two that claim to be their brothers, or people think they're their brothers, I don't think they're the strongest case. We could be incorrect about the McNair guy. But to me, when you look at Scobie and Smith and Resnick, there's just no denying it. Francis Dick Scobie, Richard Scobie is not a common name. Judith Resnick is not a common name. So it's just impossible to come across someone that has the same slanted eye, the same cheek, the same teeth, same name, same age, but that's not you.
Absolutely. Let's just track back a bit then. The ISS, are you referring to the International Space Station?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a bizarre one. I say that simply because what year was that supposed to have been put up there?
In the 80s. I don't know the exact year.
Yeah, it was kind of late 80s. I thought it was early 90s for some reason. But even still, that's 36 years ago. So they're expecting a contraption, let's call it, that's 36 years old. And if I understand this correctly, it has no protection from the sunlight because, it's in direct contact. That alone would have burned out the window seals way many, 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 many years ago. And when they send these astronauts up there, no disrespect to people, but they look like the sort of people you wouldn't trust to organize a barbecue, let alone like get out there in a on a spacewalk with a wrench, some techno wizardry, and replace solar panels. And they seem to be more intent on spending their time up there fucking around doing backflips and somersaults.
Yeah.
All of which to me appear to be either in a studio or on the aeroplane, the anti-gravity. Yeah. In fact, I actually watched one interview with two astronauts, and one of them actually said, yeah, well, when we're on the plane, and it was almost as though it slipped out.
Oh, really?
They could have been referring to their training, I suppose, but
yeah.
So that's kind of, yeah, that's my thought. I mean, on the other hand, okay, over to you, Justin. What do you think is up there, if anything at all?
Well, just to go back real quick to talk about that ridiculousness that you described, I want to touch on that because let's imagine you create a contraption, a metal box, and you go set it outside in hurricane force winds. That's 80, 120 mile per hour winds. Probably it's going to mess it up. Now let's leave that hurricane out there for days and weeks and months, 36 years. How badly beat up is that thing going to be? So something from the 80s we just threw up there is still just kicking along. Now I want you to crank that speed up to 17,500 miles per hour. That's how fast they claim that thing is going up there. Doesn't ever hit anything. It hasn't fallen apart. It hasn't disintegrated. It's just doing A-okay. Like you said, they just go out there with that wrench. So when you really break down how fast it's going and the science behind it, the melting temperatures of satellites, none of it makes any sense. I personally think there's no people on a space lab up there, 250 miles up on something the size of a football field. They have an exact replica in a NASA swimming pool, basically, the neutral buoyancy lab, they call it, in Houston, Texas. And they train underwater there with a complete ISS replica in their spacesuits. And it's my belief, and many others, that they're filming down there and then editing it to appear as if they're in space. And then that's just the exterior shot. So your spacewalks are filmed underwater to show the weightlessness, to appear weightless. And then the interior shots are just shot in a studio on Earth. They never show the fourth wall. Sometimes they drop objects. What is that, a gravity pocket? Just gravity didn't work for that moment or that spot. They've messed up too many times. I always tell people nowadays, We have the internet, we have YouTube, we can take their video, slow it down, rewind it, zoom in, and we can catch them getting caught in their harnesses. We can catch them faking the footage. And I've always said, if you're really up there, you wouldn't need to fake the footage and produce all this fakery. If I really had a Corvette and I kept sending you a photoshopped picture of me with the Corvette, and you kept saying that's not real, and I kept sending you a new one and it was still fake every time, you're never going to believe me. Your credibility is shot. And that's where we're at with NASA.
Yeah, when you view it through a certain lens, it just looks like it's such a money grab. But then it's also holding society back hugely with this massive psyop that people are that deluded that they think you can visit other planets in a tin can. You know, chuck some fossil fuel or a variant of fossil fuel in it and off you go. And then matey boy, old Mikey here, he's going to put this baby into orbit. And then Buzz and I, you know, after we've done our Freemasonic ritual, we're gonna jump in that heap of shit there. You see that complete pile of crap that you wouldn't like trust to push your kid down the street in it? Well, we're actually going to get into that. And we're going to go over to that planet over there, right? All in an environment that we've never, ever been in before or tested in before. And then Buzz and I, we're going to land, you know, we're going to we're going to chuck a little hiccup in the landing just to make it, you know, all the more real. And Mikey's like, okay, guys, right, yeah. So what are you going to do when you get there? Are you going to do some serious scientific study, research, I guess? No. We're going to fuck around and hit a golf ball.
Play golf.
And we're going to, like, burn around dangerously in a car that could turn over at any second and, you know, rip open our spacesuits and kill us all. It's
silly. It really is. And to go on the first try with no issue and everybody made it just fine.
Yeah. And the Gus Grissom thing, for people that aren't aware, Gus was the guy that tried to blow this apart. He actually hung a lemon, Justin, didn't he, on the...
Yep.
He hung a lemon on the module, on the rocket. And it was his way of saying this whole project, this whole, you know, Apollo thing, there's no way they're going to the moon. And then sadly, him and his crew all burnt to death in a training exercise. And even before his widow was informed, the Secret Service had been to his house and removed everything, you know, any kind of paperwork in which he may have alleged that this was a crock of shit. So, yes.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about that instance, that was once my lawsuit was settled after the Challenger, I went back and did a speech on Gus Grissom, and I brought a lemon in memory of him, and I hung it next to me, and I gave the whole breakdown of what happened with him.
Yes. Just showing friends at home. Gus is the chap on the left, folks. Yes. So amazing. We've covered a lot. Let's just move on to some more contemporary stuff, Justin, if I may. What's your whole view on a lot of people, when you have a YouTube channel, you hear the term controlled opposition all the time. Not so much, I don't get it sort of aimed at me because I'm quite a genuine person. I'd have to be a really rubbish controlled opposition. But I see people calling like my friend David Icke, and I'm like, look, you don't get it. He's actually a really nice guy. He's probably one of the more genuine people that you're going to meet. His sons are really nice too. They when they get called this, they laugh at it because it's just like a family. You know,
yeah.
He's not a Freemason. He's not getting paid by the cabal. No, not unless, you know, something I don't know. But what I say is when you hear people online, content creators, speakers, they can't talk about everything that's on their mind because of the way the whole narrative is set up. On these platforms, they have rules. You can't as David found out to his cost, incidentally. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's a controlled opposition is bandied around a lot in the way that, like, all these individuals are getting sort of some kickback from the cabal, whereas in reality, it's okay. Take Alex Jones as an example. He seems to have done a complete revert since the whole school thing. I'm not going to say the name of it, but when things went bang, bang, bang in a school, and he very rightly called it out. I say that because I watched 2 documentaries on it, and oh my God, talk about a story with so many holes in.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, and that Rosin guy, there's always an Ashkenazi individual that pops up at a weird moment in, whether that was Jack Ruby, Rosin or whatever his name was in that one, and the recent Charlie incident. Who was the guy that got up and dropped his pants, and the police were distracted? And who was the guy asking the question as Charlie was taking out? This is called noticing, friends. Yeah, I'm just saying. Don't I'm just saying what you can see with your eyes too. And so, getting back to the control thing, there's a lot of reasons why people can appear controlled that are not. With Alex, my mind struggles to get my head around that. Is it because he lost so much in his advertising revenue? Because so many people dropped him, and he lost his YouTube channel, or is it that that they've got something on him that's made him? He's just embarrassing himself now, Justin. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I've got a kind of an unpopular opinion with the whole controlled opposition thing, because I've been doing this now for almost 12, 13 years, and I've gotten to meet a lot of these people, like your David Icke's and the ones in America. And I've come to realize that 9 times out of 10, most people just have disagreements, ego problems, jealousy problems. That person's not talking about what I want them to talk about, controlled opposition. That person's not doing activism the way I would do it, controlled opposition. They won't say this enough. They won't do that enough. They're too popular. They now have a show, and they're not getting censored as much as I think they should be, controlled opposition. I think that is thrown around so much, and it's just it's honestly, what's more distracting than the alleged controlled opposition people are the people telling me they're controlled opposition. Russell Brand, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tucker and Candace in their later days, more recently, they all inspire me. RFK Jr., David Icke, Alex Jones has inspired me many times. He's also disappointed me when he threw Wolfgang under the bus over that school event, when he has, defended Trump and Elon at times. I don't know what's going on with Alex. He's kind of the X factor. We'll set him over there. He could be the anomaly. But everyone else is not controlled opposition, in my opinion. I think they're all real people that all are at a different part of their journey. Because we got people so far in the rabbit hole, it's like, oh, if you're not talking about viruses and NASA, then you're a shill. Well, I didn't know about that stuff in my early years. Was I a shill? No, I just didn't get it yet. So I really think it gets thrown around too much, and I think it causes so much doubt and confusion and division in our own movement. I mean, I know people that dedicate their entire online time to trying to tear down leaders in our movement, a Del Bigtree or a David Icke, and they spend all day showing these pictures of them with their supposed triangle or with one eye covered and just stringing together. And some of that stuff is real. It's really out there. But I think all the accusations of people in our own movement are off base, damaging. And I just tell people, go out, touch some grass, go meet these people, go to the conference and talk to them. When you meet their wife and you meet their kids, like you say, you come to realize these people are just like me. They're just at a different point of their journey. And just because Ian Carroll got popular overnight doesn't make him a shill. He does great work, and he hit TikTok at the right time. Yeah. So I always, and at the end of the day, what am I going to do? Tear all these people down? Or what if they're right? Or what if we're wrong about doing that? I could have been working with them to bring down the New World Order, but instead I'm sitting over here arguing about what Russell Brand really thinks. I think that is a complete waste of time and a distraction. And whoever's controlled op, so be it. I'm still getting up tomorrow and going to keep on the same journey, the same path to end the corruption. And I'll expose someone if you've got a document that says they've been getting paid by the cabal. But how many people have turned out to be proven controlled opposition shills in the end? How many? I mean, we've been doing this a long time. David Icke's still legit. Ron Paul, still a legend in most people's regard. I mean, I just don't buy into that whole controlled op thing too much.
Yeah, the only person there that you mentioned a certain, I don't like to kind of attack people by name or whatever. I do like to just use examples, but well, I mean,
You're not like Russell Brand, is that what I'm feeling?
Yeah, well, of course it is. I don't know if you probably wouldn't have seen this so much, Justin, although you might, but we held the Olympic Games here in London.
Okay.
And they had one of these ridiculously cabal Illuminati opening ceremonies, just like your Super Bowl halftime has become, where they're so ridiculously, obviously, A, either pushing a narrative or B, pushing Satanism.
Yep.
And our one, it was so, bearing in mind this was prior to the medical nonsense, they actually had a black character who was who's the euphemism for the little spiky bastard that's supposed to jump from one person into another.
Oh, okay.
You know, it begins with V, except no one believes that bullshit anymore. They're starting to realize, no, actually, like, I'm responsible for my own well-being, aren't I? Other people can't, like, affect me, which I'm like that, yes, when I hear that, because the whole medical thing is such a cabal strong point. They've got everybody in victim mode on their health. You know, I don't have to do anything. I drink a bucket of coffee and drink 10 pints, 10 gallons of beer every night because it's, Steve over there has made me sick. It's like, right. That's how your health works now, is it? You. Anyway, sorry, I had to get that in there, Justin, because I'm just over the moon that people are no longer falling for that scam. That's such superstitious bullshit. And so they had this little black, I call it the spiky bastard, but they had this character, and he's floating around hospital beds, and the whole skit was based on our NHS system because we have a health service here. It's not the health service that you guys probably think it is now. It's kind of so heavily overloaded with all the illegal immigration, such backlog because of the medical nonsense that you go, even if you arrive for your appointment on time, you're probably not going to see a doctor for anything up to 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, there was that in amongst all this craziness, they brought out a bus, and it was a bus, and it was full of like spiritual, kind of a bit hippie-ish characters that were all locked into this bus, like the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, when they had the child catcher who catches the kids and, tempts them with the lollipops and then locks them in his his caravan, his cage on wheels, basically. So anyway, this bus, all the hippy dippy types were locked inside, going like, we can't get out. And Russell Brand was playing the child catcher on the top of the book. This is out after he brought out a book called The Pied Piper, based on the story of the Pied Piper leading. I'm probably not doing this justice. Anyway, that was just all a bit, it was just all a bit weird. And the thing was, Russell was right into his meditation and his Eastern mysticism, which is right up my street. Because for me, my favorite thing now is decoding scripture and learning about the sacred secretion and the Christos and, all of this stuff that was hidden from us because we church don't know any of this stuff, right? Anyway, so Russell was doing all that, and he was this lovey-dovey character, full of love and da-da-da. And then, of course, he's had all these allegations leveled at him, and they're extremely serious, of a sexual nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then what did he do? He went out and become a born-again Christian in the actual, true sense of the word sort of thing. And I'm not knocking Christianity or whatever. What I'm saying is, you can't go from Eastern mysticism realizing that the Christos is the sacred secretion that takes place every month in your body, and Jesus was the allegory. The 33 years of his life represent the 33 vertebrae of your spine, that this magic substance travels up and down. You can't like know that and then kind of like unknow it and go to organize.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with, I was never brought up spiritually and don't have much of knowledge in that area. So if anything that he's doing on that front, you're right, I'm not very privy to, but yeah, that is interesting.
The reason I'm so hot on it, Justin, is that this is how the cabal, the dark network, whatever we're going to call them, this is how they've got people. They're keeping people in a low energy state. And very often, they don't care about the freedom movement, because what does the freedom movement do 99.9% of the time? It friggin' argues with each other. And it calls people names, and it calls them controlled, and it tries to drag, because it's people that they're awake, but they haven't stepped into the new consciousness, or whatever we're going to refer to it, which is when you start to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So I'm mentioning this to you because you're obviously an incredibly dedicated individual, and this is how they're getting people. They want people to think this is about the government lying to us, and if we can change the president, everything's going to be.
I know.
They're playing people by their energy and keeping people in fear, and
that's what's so important. I think you bring a good point about doing the whole thing. You can't just do half and say, okay, the government's corrupt, they're lying, and then go back to eating Doritos and watching television and not doing anything about it. You got to take back your health. You have to take back your mind. So like I always tell people, the first two things I did was turn off the TV and stop poisoning myself. No more vaccinations, no more fluoride, no more, sorry about that. I just said the bad word.
That's okay.
No more of putting the poisons into your body, and no more poisoning your mind with the mainstream media and all the narratives. But then there's the next step. You can't just know those things and then sit on the internet all day and post memes about how evil the government is until the day you die. You have to accept that, raise the awareness where you see fit, but then you have to take matters into your own hands and look within. Is everything going on right with you and your life and your family? Have you sort of worked out your own demons and your own problems? Because if we're just telling the whole world is corrupt and telling them that everyone's bad, but we haven't worked on ourselves, what's the point? When I started eating healthier and showing up to work with that healthy lunch instead of eating out of the fry basket today, and the guys are like, hey, what do you got there? Why are you eating that? Well, this and that. Well, how come do you know about genetically modified organisms and Roundup? And so like leading by example and changing your health and opting out of these systems is way better than arguing with people on the internet, endorsing a new politician, changing your party. I mean, just opt out of all of it. I do still believe in like a little bit of local participation, because I think my mayor and my city council member is very easy to reach, and I can actually control some of what they do. But when it comes to the federal government, your presidents and your prime ministers, you need to just abandon and opt out of all of that, expose them to all end, and then remove yourself. Don't buy what they're selling anymore.
Perfect. Absolutely perfectly put. Thank you. And so, final thing, Justin, Charlie Kirk. I had to kind of like pinch myself a bit, because when he got shot, this weird thing happened. suddenly there was this massive outpouring of grief, and I'm getting sent like videos and posts and getting tagged into, and I just thought, hang on a sec, I didn't even know about this. I've never heard of him before. I don't know if that's because I'm English and he's an American and he's big in America. I thought, am I supposed to be really upset over this guy that it's tragic what happened or what allegedly. I don't think we really know what happened, but suddenly I'm getting sent these anger videos by people going, "This is just," and I'm like, dude, did you really even know this guy? Because I wondered if it was just some almost like a theatre sketch that had been put together with total actors, which probably isn't far from the truth, because I'd never heard of him. It was like this character appeared in my life that was supposed to be so important and so into all this. And anyway, that's maybe just me, but
I'd say there's probably two reasons why, and let me take a guess at it. One is where you're at, right? You're not in America, so he's not a controversial figure in your country, but sounds like you're pretty deep in the rabbit hole and you've been into this stuff for a few years now or more than that. Why would divisive political culture war guy be on your radar? I mean, I didn't follow any Charlie Kirk accounts. I knew who he was, but because of the medical nonsense, when I went out to fight for my freedom, who was with me? Mostly conservatives. So I became closer with a lot of conservatives. Their circles leaked into my circle. So I did see a little bit of Charlie Kirk here and there. But you're right. Without that, if I was still over in my only with the libertarians and the conspiracy people and the medical nonsense had not happened, I may have been like, who is he again? I may have to look him up to see who he was, but I barely knew about him. So I would assume that's probably why. But you're right. It was interesting how them televising that connected the whole world to that tragedy, just like many other tragedies we've seen that are also psyops.
Are you into the kind of numerology?
No, not so much. I've never really known a lot about that and spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, no, I'm not as sort of, some people will come up with the gematria on every single thing in an event and point out all the coincidences in the number 48 and I'm not saying they're wrong or anything. I haven't got that much time in my life to
Same.
But I'm definitely up on the 33 signature code, which seems to be, I mean, it's ridiculous. Every other news event in the UK is like, hey, folks, we're getting 33 days of snow coming. And then it's, yes, this guy served in office for 33 days. And then of course, there was the capturing Charlie Kirk shooter in 33 hours. And then there was I'm just going to move us up the screen here. Then there was the baseball caps prominent in the press release photo of Charlie when he was sat just before he was shot. And it's 47, 47, and 47. So 11, 11, 11, 3 11, 33. I just wanted to get your take on that. I wouldn't expect everyone's probably gone into this to the lengths that I have.
Yeah, I actually got to visit the site because I had the opportunity to go to Utah about a month or so after it happened. So I got to walk around and check it out. Not that changed my mind in any way. It was just nice to get a feel for the scene. I obviously, like many people who have a critical mind, do not believe that it was Tyler Robinson, the lone shooter. It appears now that we're a few months in that it doesn't look like he was shot. It looks like he was more than likely hit by some sort of exploding device under his shirt. Maybe it wasn't even supposed to hit his neck. And that's what really messed up their narrative of a 30-06 going just his neck stopping a bullet like that, which is just ridiculous. So I think the narrative is kind of unraveling before them, and they're trying to keep it together. Candace Owens appears to be the only friend and person in America with enough of a platform to keep a light on this issue. So I'm grateful for her work. And I've just been watching it closely because this is the first time we've had the internet and video. With JFK, Zapruder film, right? That's it. And people can't take that and download it the next day after it happens and watch everything. I mean, we've been analyzing what every single person's doing in the crowd. So I think this is going to be the first time. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I have a little more optimism that we may know the truth sooner than all these other events. Not saying it would get admitted and accountability will happen, but I think there will be more of a mass public awareness about what really happened, and it won't take 10, 20, 30, 40 years like it did with JFK.
Do you think it's just a simple enough case that, he'd done a complete reversal on Israel?
Yeah, I do. And whether it was him, whether it was just that or the fact that he was thwarting war with Iran through influencing Trump, I don't know, but it seems like there were a lot of factors, from letting Tucker Carlson let loose on Israel at his conference, to turning on them, to helping stop intervention in Iran. This is just, it really looked like it. He was getting pressured. They had final meetings with him. He was texting people that they are going to kill me. And he clearly wasn't talking about some, tranny furry that was following him around. It was definitely, our greatest ally, most likely.
Yeah, I'm just, while you were talking, I put some lines, the little amphitheater where he was shot. I don't know the name for that. I watched your video, by the way, of you. It must have been quite bizarre to see the angle of the shooter and or alleged shooter, yeah. But I put some lines on the angles, the corner angles of that. It's like a pentagram type shape, and it makes the Baphomet. And
it's at the top of like a menorah shape, isn't it? As well,
that was the other thing I was going to say. Baphomet, or the menorah. Yeah. Isn't it weird? Like the whole circus that unfolded with his wife and what's his name? Is it Ben Shapiro?
Yeah.
Who's just not really a friend to any American. I have to say it. Like, his feet are firmly under the table of another country, and he's just playing your wonderful people, and how quick were they to all move into is it Turning Point?
Yeah, Turning Point. I mean, they were within 24 to 48 hours talking about replacing him and carrying on this thing, and it was just move on so fast. This is the guy who did it. Don't ask questions. All right, let's talk about the future. I mean, even the wife, she just a few days later, she's on Zoom calls bragging about how much money they made and how many signups they got. I mean, because I had to watch someone get what looked like publicly executed on live stream, I mean, I was a little taken back. I remember I was about to go in the grocery store and I saw the video and I sat there for a few minutes like, wow, this is like pretty heavy stuff. I didn't even know the guy. And to see her on those Zoom calls chuckling and talking about revenue was wild. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to make any allegations, but every day that goes on, she becomes more of a suspect in the cover-up.
Yeah, with them sparkly pants and the fireworks, and I mean, actress definitely comes to. I mean, this is what we're seeing is an act, clearly, because if heaven forbid, but if this happened to someone close to you, you just want the public, you just get away from me. I need privacy. I need to be with my children.
Right.
We need to heal. It's like she didn't even make any pretense that she's fucking delighted about it. And
she literally said that her husband was probably dancing around up in heaven. Dancing why? Because he'll never see his children again? It's just so bizarre. I mean, she hasn't even been with the children. She's been on Fox News and on podcasts and on Zoom calls and allegedly at the company just days after. So there was no fetal position and watching the children. I mean, if your husband or wife was just taken out publicly and you appear to be targets, I mean, can you imagine just leaving your children with other people for the next week, the next month?
Yeah, incredibly strange. And also, her mother, something, you know, she's involved in all these kind of techie, futuristic, something just doesn't ring.
Yeah, well, it's just like Judith Resnick's father from The Challenger. I remember when I looked into her father's former military intelligence, 32nd degree Freemason, part of the Temple of Israel. I mean, it's one thing that you're kind of involved in something strange, but when I find out your parents are involved in military intelligence, we have so many more red flags that have just gone up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, people can be involved with the government. I used to sell paper and pencils to the federal government for a couple years, but that shouldn't throw up red flags. But if I was involved in military intelligence and then I became like something, I would hope everyone would look into everything. My parents, past history, all this stuff. But no, God forbid, it's a grieving widow. It's grieving widow, so it's off limits.
Yeah.
Minus the grieving.
And this whole crying thing when no tears come out, it's just, you think they would have learned by now. Just don't do it. Just don't pretend to cry. Because the public know now that tears are supposed to come out of your eyes when you do that thing. Yes. Yep. Justin, listen, my friend, this has been an absolutely brilliant chat. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's always great to exchange, exchange ideas and information. I feel for you guys so much because I say this quite a lot on my podcast. Americans have got to be the kindest, nicest, most generous people on the planet. Not everyone, obviously.
Of course.
But I mean, they've always felt like my family across the pond to me. I've been in the States on several times, and just such kind and genuine, well-meaning people. And it's such a shame that so many of your country folk are so well-meaning they can't see the infiltration that's taken place and all this beautiful thing that you had. You got a wonderful constitution, you've got an incredible history, and to see that, they're playing you by your patriotism, aren't they? They're playing you on the one thing that you should be so proud of. And they're doing the same here. We've got this right wing. They brand it. We've got this whole nationalism thing. Like everyone's branding themselves now as Christian crusaders, and it's like, guys, they're controlling you. They want division. That's exactly, they want you to adopt a mainstream religion because that's what they invented mainstream religion for. Yeah. It's what the whole Catholic Church thing, when the empires pulled back, they left the church to control the people. So yeah, I just want to say, Justin, I wish you all the best over there,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it is a shame because it's what I go back to is there's so many well-meaning people like I've got to meeting, whether it be the enemy, the people on the other side of the argument. When you talk to them and you ask them these questions and they give you that deer in headlights look, you go, my goodness, this person has no idea. They just believe all the lies. So we have so many well-meaning people, but that gives me optimism that there's enough well-meaning people that once they see the light, the cat doesn't go back in the bag. Pandora's box has been open. Once you're awake, you don't typically go back to sheep. So that gives me hope. So we've just got to get these people awake and aware. And thank you for, having me on and giving us the ability to reach more people and do just that.
You're welcome. That would make a great T-shirt. Never go full sheep.
Yes.
Justin, listen, if you've got time, stay on the line so I can thank you properly. I've got about a minute to play us out. If you need to disappear, that's if I don't see you after this, then
okay.
That's absolutely fine. We can email each other or whatever. But just to say massive thank you for coming on the show. Friends at home, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have. If I can just give a shout out, please, to my upcoming Mount Everest summit. So I will be summiting Mount Everest. Probably I might even be on the expedition when you watch this video. And I'm doing so because nobody is talking about the link between childhood trauma and the suicide statistics we see in the veterans community. Everyone's making out that PTSD is just this like Johnny Rambo kind of scenario, and I'm here to say yes, that can play a role in complex PTSD, but there's a lot of people taking their own lives and they haven't even been in combat. So why is it? We should be asking, why is that? And I would wager it's unhealed childhood trauma that comes back to, to haunt us in later life. So if you can support me on my mission to shout this from the highest point on the planet, and there'll be a link below in the comments, folks. That just leaves me to say, if you can like and subscribe, I think I said that. And massive thank you to everybody that supports me on YouTube, Patreon, locals, or buy me a coffee. It's £1.99 a month, friends, and it just helps me to keep running this channel. I'm going to play us out. Justin, I'll see you in a second, but massive thank you again. Much love, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.
Morning, legends. I'm Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines commando. Upon leaving the forces, ended up chronically mentally unwell, self-medicating, undiagnosed trauma, and homeless on the streets of Hong Kong. It was the toughest battle I ever had to fight, but without the support of the medical community, without self-help groups, I learned the answers to rebuild my life, to go on to complete a series of extreme charity challenges to send a vital message out there for other veterans who are struggling. I've run the length of the United Kingdom, run across the Sahara Desert, rode across the Atlantic Ocean. Now I'm taking on my biggest challenge yet, climbing Mount Everest. If you can support me, friends, and continue to shine a light for our struggling veterans and let them know that is life after PTSD, I'll put a link below. If you spare a fiver, that's absolutely fine. And let's give our veterans the respect that they deserve. Much love.